calling him.
So we are on YouTube.
Hello, everyone. Thanks for joining us. We are working on getting Kymone on, so just bear with us.
Are we live now?
Yes, we are live now.
Well, I'll chat for a while we're trying to get Kymone on. So thank you for those who tuned in.
Start your video one more time.
Oh, okay.
You should talk about the Indian thing happening.
Okay. So thank you for tuning in. I know Kymone is getting on right now. In the meantime, I wonder if any of you heard that horrible speech by Donald Trump last night. It was really a disgusting example of trying to divide the country even further, talking about left fascism, talking about the protesters as thugs. It was really disgusting at a time in our history when we so need a leader to pull us together. We have somebody who is trying to create a race war, a class war, a civil war in the United States. It is really very scary and dangerous what he is doing. And also going to the site that is such a critical place at Mount Rushmore for Native Americans, has been and continues to be, was also a way at whipping up the opposition to Native American demands. So I think it's just amazing how we have a person in the White House who is doing everything he can to strengthen white nationalism, white supremacy at this time in our history. I think he mentioned coronavirus once last night, and of course they were crowded together without wearing masks. And today on the 4th of July, he's back in Washington, D.C., where he will be holding a July 4th celebration. And there, I think we have Kymone on. Kymone, can you hear us? Kymone, can you hear us?
Yes, good morning.
Good morning. So nice to have you on. I was just saying that Donald Trump is back in Washington, D.C. to celebrate July 4th. And I know that you are somebody who I've seen for years now at Frederick Douglass's house in Washington, D.C., listening to his amazing speech, reenactments of his speech about what as a slave does your July 4th mean. So I thought it was so important to have a chance to talk to you today and ask you, as an activist, as somebody who has been trying to change this country for decades, what does July 4th mean to you? And nice to see you, Kymone.
Good morning, Medea, and thank you for all the incredible work that you and CODEPINK and all of your co-conspirators have contributed to the political consciousness that's gotten us this far. I think that we need to kind of pat ourselves on the back a little bit, because I don't know about you, but I was worried that we would never get to this moment in our history, in this moment in this country, to see such an uprising of resistance. And I think that we've been planting seeds that have started to take root now.
Well, I know you've been planting seeds for decades, so it's great to start out, before we get into all the things that are wrong in this country, to recognize we are in a moment of amazing uprising. And I know you've been working with youth for a long time, and it must be great to see some of the young people that you've been mentoring. I'm sure they've been out on the streets, and this is really a time to see so many great young people out there fighting for a different society. So thank you for all the mentoring you have done of young people.
Oh, thank you so much. Yeah, because we've been doing the Marion Barry Summer Youth Employment Program for every year. This is the first year actually that we haven't been able to do it because of the situation. But to see those people out there and then have React Radio on our location support some of the activities and some of the coverage dedicated to activities. Because, you know, I was there on the June 1st attack that Bill Barr ordered. And because the commercial corporate media were behind the crowds in the safety zone. We was on the front line where the police were, and so we was the first to get hit when they started throwing bullets and tear gas, and the horses start coming out and what have you. We have some live streams that went viral and got millions of views on it, and I just thought that you know, this is the right place at the right time, and I just so wonderful that we're seeing this while we're still young enough to enjoy it. But back to your question on what does July 4th mean to me, I think it is the pit of hypocrisy to have us, you know, to see oppressed people celebrating the independence of probably one of the most powerfully corrupt nations the world has ever seen. I think that Frederick Douglass rolls over in his grave every July 4th to see how many of his people would celebrate something that he so objected to. The fact that we're talking about independence while you're oppressed, the fact that we're talking about the spectacle of seeing healthcare workers go without their much needed personal protective equipment and resources they needed to fight the biggest pandemic in this country in 100 years, they have to go without. But then we see a militarized police force that has an unlimited supply of what they need to brutalize and oppress people who are protesting against oppression and brutalization. So that hypocrisy is a bitter pill for me to swallow, and I'm thinking that a lot of people are starting to wake up to that realization as well.
So did you get a chance to hear the president's speech last night?
No, I try to avoid listening to the president's speeches. I prefer to read the coverage about it. But what did I miss this time?
Well, you missed how he is really whipping up the white nationalism, how he talks about the people out in the streets as thugs. He talks about the fascist left, the authoritarian left. And then on the other hand—
Fascist calls us fascists.
Yeah, we are the fascists, yeah. And he brought up the names of people in a positive way, throwing out all kinds of names, including Harriet Tubman and Muhammad Ali. And I wonder—
Okay, I got to go back and listen to this. Was this from the White House?
No, he was in South Dakota, where he was also
very diverse state.
The Native Americans and Mount Rushmore, and
oh wow,
there were Native American protests going on while he was having this white nationalist kind of talk with no social distancing and not wearing masks, and basically acting like coronavirus didn't exist. But in any case, I wonder what you think about the president bringing up the names of people like Harriet Tubman, and what would she have thought about that?
Wow. For the sake of not making light of the seriousness of the situation, I actually think they would have laughed initially, and because it is hilarious to actually hear a fascist accuse the people being oppressed of the same crimes that they're guilty of. I think that people need to realize that Harriet Tubman was called a terrorist during her time. And so he invoked the name of an American terrorist to prove whatever point that he was trying to make. And I'm sure no one in his approved media circle would make that point or bring up or see the irony in that. And Frederick Douglass, I'm surprised that he don't think that Frederick might show up and say something, because he's, his first time he invoked his name, he thought he was still alive. So, it, it's also exposing I wrote an article called Dear Poor White Trash. And I got banned from Facebook for posting an article called Dear Poor White Trash. And in the article, I talk about how these issues that he's using is exciting his base. His base is the poor white trash arm of the party. It's the ones who will sit here and vote against their own best interests because their racism is so strong. Lyndon B. Johnson was quoted as saying that if you convince the lowest white man that he's better than the best black man, that he won't notice that you pick in his pockets. He said, hell, if you give him someone to look down on, he would empty his pockets for you. And we've seen this play out so many times in so many different ways. In fact, I remember watching someone, not that you know that very well, I'm not a fan of Barack Obama. He has room for plenty of criticism there. But the point was the Obamacare. They was doing a street poll asking, do you support Obamacare? No, absolutely not. This is wrong. This is oppressive. It's the government taking over our health care. And then they asked the same people, do you support the Affordable Care Act? And they said, yeah, that sounds great. And there it is. It's the packaging.
Yeah.
And so he has packaged himself to appeal to that poor white trash arm of the Republican Party, because he thinks that's the only saving grace that he has, because no one else is going to excuse all of the facts of his failed administration. I call it a regime. His failed regime has done, as long as they wrap themselves up in racist rhetoric. And that's what he's doing, and that's what he thinks is going to save him.
Well, he also wraps himself up in the flag, and he puts the protesters in a category of saying they hate this country. And I know this is a tough one. I saw the video you had on your Facebook of your cousin with an American flag, and you were joking around with her about it. But when somebody asks you, are you a patriot? How do you answer that question?
Oh, well, I definitely say I'm not a patriot. I don't think I need to prove anything to anyone in terms of my love of humanity, because Emma Goldman, who I think you are modern day Emma Goldman, by the way, said that patriotism is the last refuge of scoundrels. And so I believe in the humanity of all nations. I'm not a patriot because you get me in that bag, and I can sit here and say, oh, well, God bless America and nowhere else. That's what a patriot would say. They'll say America first. That's what a patriot would say. They would say that, oh, you have to support the war at all costs. That's what a patriot would say. And I'm not in that bag at all. Malcolm X said that don't be so blind with patriotism that you can't tell right from wrong. You can't, it's wrong is wrong, no matter who does it or says it. And I'm of that thought. I'm a citizen of the world. Where's the flag for the world? Where's the flag for the planet? I'm for the planet. I'm not for any nation states over any other nation state. So no, I don't get into that whatsoever. I don't think Harriet Tubman was much of a patriot. She fought on the side of the Union, but it was serving her best interests. I don't think Freddie Douglass was much of a patriot. He traveled around the world. He was an ambassador of the United States, but I don't think that he ever supported a lot of the things that was being done in the name of the country. And then finally, the first person to die in the American Revolution was a Black person. So I think we get a pass on that. And if people can't appreciate it, then that's on them. And I think, again, what you just alluded to is Trump's agenda in trying to justify his actions and to continue to demonize the crisis that he has started actually and exacerbated through his, I don't know if it's deliberate or through his incompetence. I'm still not, I think the verdict is still out on that. I'm like, is he doing it deliberately or just incompetence? I'm not, I think it's a combination of two. What do you think? What do you think? But I hope I didn't dodge that question. I hope I addressed it directly.
No, you answered it beautifully. And I think, it brings up some other questions. You had a wonderful piece in Common Dreams that talked about the whole policing situation now and gave actually very concrete ideas of what could be done to change things. And I wondered if you could summarize a little bit about what you think the defund the police as a, translating that from a slogan to reality, what could that really mean?
Oh, wow, there's a nice list that we put together there, because actually I've been pretty much spitting that same solution-oriented information since Barack Obama's 21st Century Police Task Force hearing. I testified at that hearing, and because it was like a love fest of the police patting each other on their backs, basically saying that, yes, you break a few eggs, but we got to make an omelet. It's a dangerous, job and all this crap. For those of your listeners who I think when they hear the words defund the police, it lands on soft ears who feel that, defund police means no police, and who's going to be there when I call, Ghostbusters. I'm like, no, defund the police doesn't mean no police. It means re-envisioning how we're doing policing in America. But we need to realize that sometimes, and too often, when certain people call the police for help, they have been victims of police violence. And if they haven't noticed that, that is a privilege that they need to rectify. But we're also going to address that, oh, well, not all cops are bad. No, they're not all bad, but all the good cops know who all the bad cops are. And until they begin to speak up and stand between the people and those bad cops, then they're also part of the problem. That's that blue wall of silence. So we need community control over the police. So the article was called "Solidarity: Return the Impossible into the Inevitable." And let me just say, by starting with this quote, this is Milton Freeman, and Milton Freeman was not a progressive person whatsoever. But even a broke clock is right 2 times a day. And he said that only a crisis.
The Chicago School economist, right?
Yeah. Only a crisis produces real change. When that crisis occurs, the actions that are taken depend on the ideas that are laying around. That, I believe, is our basic function: to develop alternatives to existing policies, to keep them alive and available until the politically impossible becomes the politically inevitable. And that's Milton Freeman. And that's the period we are. We've gone from the politically impossible to the politically inevitable. And so when I brought up the Obama's 21st Century Police Task Force hearing, I was practically laughed out the room for repeating to you what I'm about to say. I was practically laughed out the room. And now this article I was requested to write with Nancy Altman, who was with the Social Security Works, and she wrote a wonderful books, several books. I don't know how many books Nancy has written. And they wanted to talk about those same things that got me laughed out the room. Here's the list. When we talked about defund the police, we said that at least 50% of funds should be allocated to social programs and actual affordable housing. And I say actual affordable housing because $1 million house is affordable to somebody. We have to start defining what we really mean. And then in every city, in every city across this country, every single year, millions of dollars are awarded in police brutality cases, police violence cases, and that money comes out of the city budget. The money should come out of the police department budget directly, and it should come out of that police officer's salary directly, or his pension, or what have you. And I guarantee you that alone will put a leash on rural police behavior overnight. And then we said prohibit asset forfeiture unless there's a conviction, and make sure that those police asset forfeitures do not financially benefit the police department. We need a citizen review board that has hiring and firing powers. Most of them are paper tigers that have no teeth. Any officer that causes loss of life for an unarmed person should be automatically fired. Right now, they get paid vacations. Of course, we need a national database for all police shootings. FBI has testified that they could not tell you how many people the police shoot every year. The FBI couldn't tell you how many people the police shoot in a year, but they could tell you the whereabouts of Martin Luther King every single day. He can tell you the whereabouts of Martin Luther King every single day. Okay, now which is the threat? Okay. Require all police to wear body cameras turned on, mandatory at all times. But now they walk around and say, oh, we turned it off. There's no repercussions for that. You know, they hide in their hands. And then, I don't know about other cities, but in DC, when you request to get copies of the body cam footage, they would charge you thousands of dollars to access it. All right, that's another issue we have to address. That's in Washington, D.C., where Black Lives Matter, you know, for 2 blocks, except when the police are actually whooping your ass in Black Lives Matter Plaza, which has also been the case. Of course, banning all chokeholds, all neck restraints, require police that work in the community, to live in the community. I think that's also a high priority, which that shouldn't be a problem, because they say, oh, you can't force people to live in an area. Like the mayor has to live in the city they represent. The council members have to live in the area of the city that they represent. The Congress has to live in the district that they represent. So why not the police? Because then we have a different relationship. You have a different accountability when you bump into the grocery store with people that you are policing. You know, it's a whole different conversation. And then finally, restrict the power of police unions. There should be public input into the negotiations in public and police unions. And you know, police unions has been used like a weapon against the people and defending road police behavior. So I urge everybody to check that out. It's in Common Dreams. It's called Solidarity Return the Impossible into the Inevitable. It's on my IG page, and it came out.
We also just put it into the chat box. So thank you for that. And you know, we have a question that I think is a great one related to what you just brought up, which is, have you been doing teach-ins, and do any of these teach-ins happen on the streets? Like you mentioned, Black Lives Plaza, you know, I've been there since I came back into town, and it was just music going on and people hanging around. Are there teach-ins that have been happening there and in other places around the city?
Well, I'm embarrassed to say that there have been very few teach-ins that I know of, but you have, as a result of this conversation, have inspired me to begin to do that. I think that's the next step that we should definitely be taking to move us forward intellectually and become a more proactive force and get everybody on the same page as quickly as possible. But there has been teach-ins at the Howard Theater on Juneteenth. A group of artists came together and have activated the Howard Theater as a cross-section of meeting and art and activism. And we have not every Saturday, as many Saturdays as possible, but starting on Juneteenth, we have activated teach-ins at the Howard Theater every Saturday. And the next one, well, again, it's not every Saturday, it's whenever we have the resources and people available. And the next one will be on the 18th at the Howard Theater. But I think what you just challenged me to do is to come out and use my resources to organize teach-ins in the plaza. And I think that's the next thing that we're going to do. So I'm going to make sure I shout out CODEPINK when we do these teach-ins. You know, maybe we even call it CODEPINK. You know, but
well, it's not me. It's one of the people who wrote in, but I think it's a fabulous idea.
Well, I hope I get to see their names so I can thank them, because I think that's exactly what we need right now. That was Elaine. Was that Elaine Cooper? Thank you, Elaine. I hope I got the name right. Yeah, I am all aboard. Yes,
So
yes. I hope.
talking about how we move forward, education is obviously a very good one, especially these kind of specifics about what people can take back into their communities to implement. And the other is we skirted around the issue of upcoming elections in just saying, what is Trump's strategy? But I think before we leave, we should talk for a minute about from here to November, what your strategy is. I think I probably can guess that you're not a great Joe Biden fan. And the more I hear when the rare occasions that he opens his mouth, the harder it is to press a button for him, especially in the middle of this incredible, beautiful uprising around the country, calling for this country to really address its history and present day racism. And he comes out and says he'd allocate more money for the police rather than defunding the police. And
Yeah.
the issues that I work on around the wars and the militarism overseas, we know his past history, and we know that he has not embraced even the call by Bernie Sanders and others that say, let's take 10% of the Pentagon budget and put it into things that we really need. So he's not going to be our answer to a lot of these issues, but we do want to get Donald Trump out of the White House. So how do you talk to young people about the upcoming election and the relationship between the movement building and electoral politics?
You know, I always go back to quotes because I tell people all the time that like when someone says, "Oh, we need a leader," no, we don't need a leader. We've had our leaders, and when you look at the lineage of our leaders, look what happened to them. Not just our Black leaders, but all of our radical leaders. Look what happened to all of them. But they all left lesson plans. And if we just look at the plans and activate them, I think we're just afraid to act upon the words that have been provided for us, the lessons been provided for us. So I want to quote Martin Luther King here to give us some point of reference. He says that one of the great liabilities of life is that all too many people find themselves living amid a great period of social change, and yet they fail to develop the new attitudes, the new mental responses that the new situation demands. They end up sleeping through a revolution. And whenever I hear someone says, "Oh, I can't wait till things get back to normal," or, "I'll be glad when this is over," and like, "Oh, Joe Biden is going," I'm like, okay, you're missing the point here. We're beyond the point of return. I mean, there are articles right now, and what's this brother's name? Trying to find his article here, but it says that this is the first July 4th, which we actually can see the end of America coming. And this is from Leonard Pitts, and they did a Bloomberg interview on this, and they're saying how that America could be the most rapid decline of any empire in history, and that we could be Venezuela in a decade, And I'm like, well, Venezuela didn't, just sink into chaos and economic misery. Is because of attacks on its economy and the sanctions and the interference and failed coups and all that. America is all on America. It's all self-destruction in America. So I don't think that's the same thing. But we need to realize that we are at an exciting moment right now because the elections, first of all, I don't think Joe Biden is going to win against Trump because he hasn't been a unifier. Like you just said, we're sitting here looking at record number of outpourings in the streets over police violence, and you saying that you're going to increase the budget for police. He's talking about, well, I want to train police instead of shooting them to kill them, shoot them in the leg. You know, that's our choices. The choices we have is between getting shot and killed or getting shot and injured. Not whether you're innocent, guilty, whatever, that's not even debated, just where you're getting shot. You're going to get shot, but you're going to choose when you get shot. And I think that is a
Joe Biden, he'll only shoot you in the leg.
yeah, and that's such an accurate depiction of the Republican Party and the Democratic Party. They both are going to hurt you, but you're going to die quick with this one. And with this one, you'll die slower, okay? And people say, well, come on, the leg. Okay, you're not from Washington, D.C., where they're about to change the name of the racist PG County community football team that people know as the Washington R word. But their star player, Sean Taylor, number 21, was killed because he was shot in the leg. So you can still die shot in the leg, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, brothers and sisters. So don't tell me that this is not going to kill you. So just remember that. But I think it's a great picture that he has painted to really describe the two wings of the same bird. But I would submit that if he had the good sense to quickly get a VP that is progressive, that is willing to say and do all the things that he's unwilling to say and do, then he might have a chance. And the only VP that I think will give him a chance is either Elizabeth Warren or someone as radical as a Barbara Lee. Like I might vote for him if he got a Barbara Lee. Elizabeth Warren, you know, I didn't like how she did the Bernie thing. And that's leaves a bad taste in my mouth. But I think that would increase his chances because it would bring more people into the fold. But without those two women right there, he doesn't have a chance. And even if he did win, I'm not convinced Trump will lead the White House. Because I remember, what was it? The lawyer that went to jail for so many people in the Trump regime has gone to jail. Cohen said that if Trump is not reelected, that there would not be a peaceful transition of power. He testified in Congress to that effect, that there would not be a peaceful transition of power. And that's why he's rallying his poor white trash base, get their guns, injecting. You know, I hope I got time to read a poem at the end of this because it kind of like summarizes my mood and feeling on this. But I think we're living in extraordinary times, and we need to acknowledge that. And we should not have a fear of the unknown. I think that Trump is the perfect person to be in the driver's seat when America begins its downward spiral.
Well, it's interesting that you bring up Barbara Lee because her name has not even been on the publicly on any list. And I think that shows the power of the military industrial complex because she is one of the only ones that has challenged that. And so that doesn't even give her a chance to be in the running for VP. Which is really remarkable given that she was right opposing the use of force after 9/11. She was right opposing the invasion of Iraq. She's been right on the issues for all of these years. And yet, even though there is now more national talk about defunding the police, we have to work on making a public discourse around defunding the military, defunding the wars. And I want to put in a plug for Barbara Lee because not only is she supporting Bernie Sanders' call for cutting Pentagon by 10%, she's actually saying where we want to go really is cutting $350 billion, which is almost 50% of the Pentagon money.
Right.
So she's been right all along.
That's right.
And as people in her district say, Barbara Lee speaks for me. So why don't we wrap it up with any words you want to say and a poem you want to leave us with? And I know today's a busy day for you, so I thank you for giving us the time.
Oh, well, I'm not doing too much today. this year. The normal Frederick Douglass reenactment at the historical site is virtual today. So this is the first time that I won't be at Frederick Douglass House. Maybe I still should go, because it's been like a tradition to go to Frederick Douglass House every July 4th for like, I don't know, maybe 15 years straight I've been going.
Well,
But
before I give you your closing words, that does bring up the issue about how hard it is to be organizing in this time of coronavirus. And it is amazing all the people out on the street despite that. But somebody had asked, how do you compare this moment to Occupy? And I think were it not for coronavirus, people would be taking over plazas throughout this country. And we would have even more of an uprising that we have right now. But sorry to interrupt right there. I want to give you the space.
no problem at all. I just want to say that Noah Smith wrote a wonderful article, and it says, coronavirus brings American decline out in the open. That's what I think, that when we was talking about the crisis quote from Milton Freeman, this is the crisis that's made everything impossible, inevitable. And it says, without fixes to infrastructure, education, healthcare, and government, the U.S. will resemble developing nations in a few decades. So I want to make sure that everyone is aware that we have to be involved at a very high level, that this is not going to work itself out. We all have to do something, okay? And we all have to be activists. We all have to be activists. We can no longer be spectators. But even if you're not getting out there physically, you should be doing what you can to support those who are. You should be doing what you can to read materials that are inspiring to you and informative to you. I would think that the first book that I would urge every one of your listeners to get their whole hands on is Martin Luther King's last book, Where Do We Go From Here? Chaos or Community. I think that would give you a great point of reference and the strength to get us through this transition period. But I saw up here, someone said, why not Stacey Abrams while we was talking about the great Barbara Lee? Well, I think you should compare those two, Stacey Abrams, Barbara Lee. One is young and unproven, and one has a track record of being on the right side of history consistently, and I think that it is some sort of, it's not your turn yet. This is not a popularity contest because Stacey's name is hot or whatever. That's not going to cut it. We need substance over symbolism. Stacey is more symbolism. No disrespect to her, but she did make some very flattering remarks about Ronald Reagan during her Democratic rebuttal to the State of Union address. And I urge people to go back and listen to that. She was very flattering of Ronald Reagan, and she also was very cozy with Bloomberg, too cozy for my comfort. I think she was on record as saying that every candidate uses their strengths to improve and promote their platform. He's using his money. I'm like, okay, that's not gelling. So yes, that's the difference. Barbara Lee was almost laughed out of Congress when she proposed having a Department of Peace. And I don't think too many people are laughing at Barbara Lee now. And then finally, I think that as a result of this conversation and your listeners, that we will be organizing some teach-ins. And I want to say about that book that I was quoting from Martin Luther King. He says that, where do we go from here? We must honestly face the fact that the movement must address itself to the question of restructuring the whole American society, and that we must begin raising the question about the economic system, about a broader distribution of wealth. And when you ask that question, you begin to question the capitalistic economy. The next big wave that we're going to be fighting is cancel rent, because no one should become homeless as a result of this crisis. And it's going to be a test on the capitalist system of whether they're going to do the right thing, or they're going to be able to cancel rent and take care and bail out the people, like they build out the corporations, like they build out Wall Street, like they build out GM, and like they build out the defense contractors, and wars with unlimited, with blank checks and unlimited supplies? Are they going to do the right thing, or are they going to say that we can afford to have 35 to 40% of a city evicted, and then bring in the marshals to throw these people out in the street? That would be the nail in the coffin in America if that was to happen. They would have sped up their own demise if that is to happen. And I want to make sure that we are rising to the occasion on that one. And so I'll just close out with my poem. And it's
before you go to that, I see a suggestion here from Ariel Gold saying, in my city of Ithaca, New York, a number of years ago, we did a citywide community read of MLK's Where Do We Go From Here? More cities should do that again. So that's another good idea coming from that here, don't you think so?
Repeat that part. I thought you was going to say about the council and rent in Ithaca. Ithaca was the first city in America to approve the canceling of rent for their citizens. So I thought that's where you was going for. So repeat what you just said.
She said they did a community read of Martin Luther King's Where Do We Go From Here?
Then I think that should be the nature of our first teaching at Black Lives Matter Plaza, and I'm going to organize that, and I'm going to dedicate it to Elaine Cooper and Medea Benjamin and CODEPINK and Miss Gold. All right. Absolutely.
Wonderful. Well, in addition to you being a journalist, a writer, a mentor, the head of We Act Radio, you are also a poet, a theater director, a Renaissance man, and so it is very nice if we can go out with some poetry.
All right, here we go.
Now, is this your own?
Yeah.
Great.
And I wrote this, it was initially entitled For My Birthday, but because of the occasion, auspicious occasion, we're gonna say for July 4th. For July 4th, I want a revolution. As long as there's money to be made in the maintenance of the problem, there will be no solution. For my Independence Day, I want a revolution. I want people to stay at home, refusing to go to work, for the government refusing to provide them with health care for all. I want rent canceled, mortgages pushed back like receding hairlines. I want to see bold old ladies buck and snatch a roll of toilet paper from all those that have been hoarding it like they all full of shit. I want people to wash their hands and cover their mouths when they cough. I want to be quarantined with something brown, sweet, wet, and soft, like cognac or rum. Venezuelan Diplomatico. Put this whole corrupt country on a sabbatical. I want all the poor white trash to inject themselves with disinfectant, grab their guns, and storm the Capitol. Make every city look like I Am Legend in the Big Apple. For my Independence Day, I want the police to practice social distancing from Black people. For my Independence Day, I want a revolution. I want to expose the true nature of this decade in American society. I want a shared economy, redistribution of wealth, deacons for defense, defund the Pentagon, the NSA, Department of Defensive Intelligence, the CIA, and the FBI. Stop all wars, stop the violence, end all U.S. sanctions, end the Cuban blockade, make the internet a free public utility. Give the Great Lakes to Flint, Michigan. Give the Trump Hotel to the homeless. Drag his ass out the White House by his hair and watch the Secret Service put their hands in the air and wave them like they just don't care. Free all political prisoners. Give all the writers, directors, producers, and actors of The Wire an Emmy Award. Make the bad boy Isaiah Thomas the honorary member of the Dream Team. Give him his Olympic gold medal and watch him throw it in the river like Muhammad Ali. We need solutions with no pollution. For my Independence Day, I want a revolution.
Woo! That is fantastic.
Yeah, I was going to read that poem on the top of the former statue site of Albert Pike. Climb up there and read that. So that's coming.
Wonderful. And for anybody who doesn't know the reference, that's the statue that came down here in Washington, D.C. that
Yeah.
Unfortunately, Donald Trump is threatening to put them back up and give some people 10-year jail sentences for taking down statues. So,
again, that you're speeding up your demise. You're speeding up your demise. And no one was arrested when they brought down Albert Pike's statue. To my surprise, there was no resistance, but there was
And
resistance.
who is he, for people who don't know? Who was Albert Pike?
Albert Pike was a high-ranking, I want to say general, but he was a high-ranking official in the Confederate Army, and he was one of the founding members of the Ku Klux Klan. And his statue was next door to the headquarters of the Metropolitan Police Department in Washington, D.C., and the court buildings. And we have, since 1997 that I know of, have been making issue about that statue and was trying to get it pulled down. And then this climate presented itself, and some of these wonderful patriots showed up, and they did the dastardly deed in front of the MPD. And I just wished I was there to see it. I've visited since then, and I think it was a great victory for the people. And the next one that should be pulled down is Andrew Jackson. And they brutalized very many people several times since then in protection of Trump's favorite racist president, racist in chief. They call Andrew Jackson the Indian killer. You know, so, and he almost killed the man in Congress, but that's another issue. So it's an exciting time to be alive. Look forward to the teachings that's coming up. Chaos or Community, where do we go from here? The MLK teachings at Black Lives Matter Plaza, and we're going to be doing that all summer long. Thank you to your listeners, and thank you to the great example that you have set for us all in activism and art, because you're one of the few activist organizations that use political art and theater and performance in all of your actions. You guys dressed up in costumes, you dance, you know, like this, like I think Emma Goldman said it too, you know, if I can't dance, it's not my revolution, you know. So it's always fun to be with you, you know, and enjoying the beautiful struggle. And you're one of the people who have refused to become a burnt out activist. And I always, that's the lesson I always got for you, that don't let this wear you down. Have a drink and keep moving.
Well, Kymone, it's been such a pleasure to spend some time on July 4th with you. I know we're usually up at the Frederick Douglass House, but it's great to be on the Zoom with you today. That poem was great. I think I will always keep in my mind, we want the police to social distance from Black people. Thank you, everybody who tuned in today, and we will have this live. We will have it on YouTube for anybody who didn't get a chance. Tell your friends they could go and watch it later. Lots of words of wisdom and inspiration from Kymone Freeman on July 4th. Thank you so much. Have a great rest of your weekend.
And rest in peace to Frederick Douglass, a true patriot.
Presente.